Year 5, and welcome to Thursday, week 5 of our maths session for this week. So we're going to begin today by doing what we usually do on a Thursday now, is completing our arithmetic paper. So if you'd like to pause the video now and then press play again when you're ready to mark your answers. Just a reminder, about 10 or 15 minutes for this today then please. So here we have yellow group's answers. And here we have blue and green's answers. So if you'd like to just pause the video so you can mark those now. So today we're going to be moving on from looking at negative numbers to now reading and interpreting line graphs. So to be successful today, you're going to need to use your understanding of X and Y axes, and we'll come on to a bit more detail about that in a minute. Understanding the information and omitting in there given to you by each axis and each scale, and know how to take a reading from a graph and how to interpret that information. So the first thing I'd like you to do in a minute is I'd like you to pause the video and think about if you had to add labels, the following labels: title, key, x-axis, y-axis and data. Whereabouts on this line graph would you actually place those different labels? So pause the video now to have a look at that. Okay, so let's have a look at that together then. So here we can see we've got the title of the graph. So this graph is all about rainfall, and that comes from the title. We then need to look at the fact that we've got two different types of axes, an x-axis and a y-axis. And what these often are is these are giving us the information. They come together to show that data. So we can see the x-axis today along the bottom here is showing us each weekday. So if we're looking at rainfall, we're going to be looking at it for each day of the week. And then on our y-axis, is often where we will always see a scale. And we can see our scale here, it's going up in fives, and it's all about the rainfall in millimeters. So you can see here whereabouts the rain has fallen. This is the data that you can see in the middle here. This shows these line graphs is the data that's being created from this information. And you'll also notice that there are two lines, and this is why we need a key here, because we need to understand what is the orange line showing us and what is the blue line showing us. So we can see the blue line is showing us London's rainfall, and the Leeds rainfall is in the orange colour there. So some really key things that we need to look out for in our line graphs this next couple of days. Key, x-axis, y-axis, a title for our graph, and the general data of what it shows. And these are really, really important to help us interpret these graphs. So in a minute I'd like you to pause the video and I'd like you to think about what information can you get from this graph that we can see in front of us. It says a car travelling time, so there's our title, from Manchester to London. We can see on our x-axis this time it's all about the times of the day, and we can see our scale on our y-axis here is obviously going up in 50s, and it's showing distance in miles. So I want you to think about what different things can you gather from this graph. Let's have a little look at this together then. Here's some of the things that I've thought about. First of all, I can obviously see a scale. We've just talked about this, haven't we? The fact this scale goes up in 50 miles is the increments, but also the scale on the x-axis here, we can see that it's actually showing each hour of the day. Each sort of point of data has been plotted at each hour of the day. The start time, so if someone said to me, what time did they start this journey? Well, before they've travelled any miles, they must have started at this point. They wouldn't have started 50 miles in. So what time did they start the journey? Well, that would have been at 9 AM. We could then probably look at when did the journey finish? Well, from what we can see from our data, I'm probably thinking about 200 miles. We can see here that they finished their journey at 2 PM. There's no more data that we can see at the moment. What else do we... Okay, so we've got start and finish time. Next thing I'd like us to look at is actually when was the car actually possibly travelling slower? And I want us to look at this area here. Can you see on the line graph, it's not moving as steeply as it previously was. If you can see, roughly on average, at these points, the car's travelling nearly 50 miles each hour. But between 11 and 12, the car doesn't travel so far, which suggests to me that they've either got caught in traffic or actually the car actually possibly stopped for a break. It certainly must have gone slower if it didn't stop. And we can get some general measurements. So we can see that at 10 a.m, how far had they driven? 50 miles. We can see that at 2 p.m, they had driven 200 miles. And we can also think about what time was it when they'd driven 150 miles, and we can see there we've got 1 p.m. So there's lots of different information that we can gather from this one graph. So let's have a look at some of the questions we might get asked today. In which hours did the car travel fastest? So this time, it's still a car journey, it's slightly different. We're looking at hours, so we can see here along the bottom the hours it was travelling, and this time we've got speeds in miles per hour, so we can see we're going up in 5 mile per hour increments. So we're looking for really the top speed. And when I'm looking at this, I can see the top speed is roughly from here to here, and this is where I would say the car's going about 70 miles an hour. Now the question says, which hours did the car travel faster than 50 miles an hour? So I found where it was travelling the fastest. Now, whereabouts is 50 miles an hour? 50 miles an hour is roughly here. So I can see I've got an hour here, an hour here, an hour here, and an hour here, where the car was travelling more than 50 miles an hour. 3 increments here we can see where it was travelling at 70, and 1 here where it was travelling at 60. And it says in which hours? So the hours were hour 3, hour 4, hour 5, and hour 6. Now if the question was how long, so if we change this question to how long, we'd be giving a slightly different answer. How long was the car travelling faster than 50 miles an hour? Well, from hour 3 to hour 6, we need to think about how many hours is that? 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. So the answer would be 3 hours. So you need to be very careful today to look and think about what is the question asking you. So you can see how that's 2 different types of questions there. In which hours did the car travel faster? Hour 3, 4, 5 and 6. Or how long did the car travel faster than 50 miles an hour? It's 3 hours. So just be aware of that today when you're looking at these problems. Okay, so if we have a little look again at this line graph that we previously looked at the beginning, we can see here we've obviously got 2 sets of data, one for London and one for Leeds, and this particular line graph is all about rainfall. And we could be asked a range of questions, particularly around comparing the rainfall between London and Leeds. So one day I might ask on which day was did the most rainfall, and I can see here's my highest point, and if I mark it on my scale, I'm roughly looking at probably around 22 millimetres of rain, and that's obviously fallen in Leeds here. Okay, it might ask me what's the difference in the largest rainfall in Leeds and the largest rainfall in London. So again, let's find the largest rainfall in London, put that across, it's roughly 20. So if in London then the rainfall is 20 millimetres, what's the difference between the two? The difference between the two is obviously 2 millimetres. So you might get asked questions where you have got to find the difference. Which is the largest, which is the smallest? How many days maybe did London have more rainfall than Leeds? We could look at that one. Will it have more rainfall on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday? and on Sunday. So I had more rainfall for 4 days. So it's really important today, guys, that you really think about what the question is asking of you. And maybe it might even ask you things like, which days was there no rainfall? Well, actually, we can see that on Monday there was no rainfall in Leeds. Can you see? Because it's on the 0 here. But every other day in Leeds there was some rain. And in London there obviously was some rain in line here. So we're looking at probably about 3 millimetres. There was obviously rain on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But it doesn't look like there was any rain on Friday or Saturday. So there's lots of information that we can gather. It's really important today that you really think carefully about what the question. There's lots of information that we can gather. So it's really important today you think carefully about what the question is asking you. We'd like you to work through a series of different line graphs and have a go at answering those questions. We look forward to seeing your work later. Thank you.